So, playing against d3spwn with his White Weenie deck, which also features Eldrazi, so colorless uh, creatures that require colorless mana and a bunch of colorless land to cast them. He also has Mass Removal, Outburst, and Tragic Arrogance, and 3 copies of Reprisal, so I'm gonna have to keep this in mind and play around them. So first match, I have a 2-lander on the play. I'm gonna decide to mulligan this. It felt a bit risky, and of course I end up keeping a hand that's not nearly as good. Well, it's slightly worse. Yeah, so in the previous game I was minus screwed. I lost because of keeping a 2-land hand on the play. But luckily this time things work out much better. I already drew my 3rd land, even though it comes into play tapped. So I'm gonna play my Advocate and hope that I'm gonna find something to do with my mana next turn. He plays Lieutenant. I draw an Auto Nissa, so I could play that. What I decide to do instead is to just play Declaration in Stone on the Lieutenant, which is not a great play. I mean, it's not the best target for Declaration in Stone. My opponent has much bigger creatures in his deck. However, given that I have a Reflector Mage and I have a Bounding Crisis, and I think that I want to use my mana efficiently, so I will be able to deal with my opponent's next creatures anyways. I decide to use the Declaration in Stone just to keep my tempo up. I think this matchup is gonna be dependent on tempo, whatever that means. Here I'm just gonna pass with Bounding Crisis. And he plays a Lieutenant. So yeah, waiting on the Declaration in Stone would have been nice. I would have been able to get 2 for 1. That's another thing that I didn't consider. And drawing the Skyrider Elf is pretty good. I can just play that one, and my opponent cannot attack with his 2-1 anyways. Now he's gonna play Declaration in Stone, Always Watching, which allows him to attack, so that's not bad for him, but it's also not bad for me. I can just bounce his renowned creature and attack. So I could play, now that I drew a follow-up, I could really play off of this, looking for my land. However, I think that the Wanderer is not even that good in this matchup against an opponent who's playing 3 copies of Reprisal. So I'm just gonna stay on 3 lands. I have another 3-drop that I can play. My opponent trades, which is fine by me, even though it's not a mana efficient trade, trading my 3-drop for his 2-drop. But there's an Always Watching in play, so that's also something to consider. And here my opponent is not gonna play anything this turn, which really goes to show the power of Reflector Mage. Probably my opponent has multiple copies of the Lieutenant in hand, or he could also have Avacyn. If he has Avacyn, it's fine. I can just tap it at instant speed with my Bounding Crisis, so attacking here is safe anyways. He could also have a Mass Removal spell. Maybe he's waiting for me to commit more stuff on the board to play his Mass Removal spell. So with that in mind, I'm gonna pass without playing my Tireless Tracker. Okay, so he goes and plays, after passing his previous turn without playing anything, he's gonna play 3 2-drops. Two of them he could not play last turn because of a Reflector Mage. And he probably drew the Knight of the White Orchid. And here I'm contemplating in whether I want to play the Bounding Crisis or not. It cannot attack, all of my opponent's creatures have a first strike. It cannot even block proficiently, so I decide to keep it in my hand and maybe use it to tap a creature. You know, I cannot just attack a couple of times with my flyer, and that's gonna be enough to win, so I decided not to play it. I'm not sure if that was the right play, anyways. And here I'm just gonna play the tracker and finally play off of Nissa. It seems like the most efficient way to play this turn, because I want to play off of Nissa. Yeah, I get another Crisis. I also want to get the clue, even though the clue is almost certainly not gonna be relevant in this game, but it's possible my opponent could play a mass removal spell to get rid of my flyer, and then drawing cards could be good to rebuild. He plays a Foundry of the Consuls, which is a good draw, keeps him alive. And yeah, he's attacking with everyone. I'm just gonna double block the Lieutenant. Yeah, it's not that important to keep my tracker alive. Yeah, I'm already constrained on mana. I don't have time to even crack the one clue that I have. My opponent orders blockers in an interesting way. He kills my Reflector Mage, lets me have the tireless tracker, which probably means that he has a Reprisal in hand. So here I'm just gonna attack with my flyer, let my opponent champ block with a token. And I'm just gonna pass, I think. Tap one of my blockers, my opponent's blockers at the end of turn, then tap another one or bounce another one, and hopefully attack for lethal. And this is where I kind of regret not playing the Bounding Crisis previously, just to have an additional attacking creature. Yeah, so here I also make another mistake, as I don't tap my opponent's creature pre-combat. So I'm allowing my opponent to attack with his creatures that have Vigilance, and that's the thing that I missed. I completely forgot about Vigilance. So I should have tapped the Lieutenant before attackers were declared, and I would have taken 5 less damage. And if my opponent has a way to get rid of my flyer here, that could be game losing play. You know, I could lose the game because of that. Like if the Rogue's Passage was another copy of Foundry of the Consuls, I would lose. Luckily I don't get punished for my misplay, and I can just play a Reflector Mage and bounce Lieutenant again and attack for lethal, and my opponent will just concede. So second game, I'm lucky enough to be on the play again. I have a pretty strong hand, so I'm gonna keep. My opponent mulligans once. I can play an elf on turn 2 and then remove a blocker and then play a tracker. Or I can just play the Advocate, which is going to attack for 2, just like the elf, but it's a bit more mana efficient, of course. Also a better blocker. My opponent kills it immediately. And I'm gonna follow up with the tracker, even though I don't have the land to play immediately. you know, normally you want to save the tracker for when you can immediately get a land drop, even better if it's an Evolving Wilds, but I don't think, as I said before, I don't think that card advantage is super important in this matchup, and I didn't have any other play anyways, so playing that seems fine. He plays a Matter Reshaper, which I can just bounce with my Reflector Mage, which is of course a very strong tempo play, yeah, you know, just to keep using that word. So let's see if he has something else to play. So he goes with the Declaration Stone, and again he targets the Reflector Mage, again signifying that he probably has a Reprisal. That's the only possible explanation. So here I could attack, see if my opponent blocks, and I could pump. At this point instead I choose to just tap my opponent's blocker and attack for 3. Given that I'm pretty sure that he has Reprisal, I wanna see if I can play the game in such a way that he never gets to use it. Even though in retrospect, if I attack and he blocks and I sacrifice the clue, he's gonna lose his creature. The whole exchange is not gonna be bad for me. I kind of need to draw cards to play my bigger creatures that I have in my hand. You know, I have my 2 most expensive creatures. So now that I do the land, fortunately, I can use Declaration in Stone on the Matter Reshaper and kind of make the play that I could also have made the previous turn. So just attack with my Tireless Tracker and allow my opponent to get value from his Reprisal. He's gonna block. I'm of course going to sacrifice a clue, and now my tracker can be killed by Reprisal. But it's fine overall. The exchange was still good for me. Leaving a Reprisal stranded in my opponent's hand is not gonna be an issue, given that I already have in my hand 2 creatures that die to Reprisal. So I probably should have made that play the turn before as well, instead of playing the Bounding Crisis. But it's fine either way. My opponent plays a 2-drop and he passes. So if he has a Reprisal, he really should have played it during his turn, because now I get to play a land and get 2 additional clues because it's a fetch land. So of course he's gonna use the Reprisal after I declare attackers, so I'm gonna wait for that, crack my fetch land in response so that I get my second clue. It's gonna be the red mana that I only use for converge spells, and now I can play 2 creatures. Given that I have 3 clues, there's no reason to play around the mass removal. I can just play all of my stuff. Okay, he gets value from the Knight of the White Orchid. And now that I have Avacyn ready and my opponent is at 8 life, I'm feeling pretty confident. Still, it's not clear how I want to attack. I could attack with all of my creatures, threatening to use my elf ability to pump, but my opponent could have another Reprisal in hand. So all things considered, I decided that if I just attack for 3, there's nothing that could go really wrong for me. So I'm just gonna make that attack, and my opponent takes it, and now I have a lethal, of course, with Avacyn, even if my opponent exiles my flyer, I can still have lethal with just Avacyn plus the pumping ability of the elf, so he's gonna make a suicide attack. I'm just gonna block and yeah, I'm just gonna block that way, and he is gonna play Planar Outburst, which unfortunately destroys creatures, so making them indestructible is gonna be enough to win the game.